The agency I am completing placement at is Siri Community School in Mount Evelyn. This school is a part of Siri Services, one of the largest not-for-profit organisations serving the population of the Yarra Ranges and Casey regions near Melbourne. This school focuses on flexible learning and educational opportunities. The main client group of Siri are the students who attend this school. These students live within the Upper Yarra catchment, where there is much socio-economic disadvantage. They are aged between 12 to 21 years and get allocated to a junior, middle or VCAL senior setting. Following on to this, the parents and carers of these students can be seen as clients of the organisation. Not only does Siri provide flexible learning opportunities that are an alternative to mainstream schooling, Siri also provides a number of services to students, such as access to a wellbeing team, access to different forms of therapy including art and colour, even at times sport and animal therapy, programs targeting disengagement, anxiety and emotional regulation, and there are also individual coping assessments and goal setting sessions with both teachers, parents and the wellbeing team for students to access. And then there is access to external support services such as youth counsellors and career pathway coordinators, and there's availability to refer on to further external services if needed. Within this placement setting, there are issues that can impact on the clients at both a structural and individual level, reminding that the clients are both the students at the school and the parents at the school. Some of the current structural level issues facing this group include the impacts of poverty, particularly at the school, and the low socioeconomic disadvantage that the school focuses and targets. The impact of poverty is a big structural issue. According to Harvard University's Center on the Developing Child, living in poverty often means having limited access to healthcare, food and housing. There is also a greater risk of school dropout for children, homelessness, unemployment due to a lack of educational childcare, and unfortunately the inability to reach a full potential. Within this school, we see a number of these specific categories impacting on both the child and family given their socioeconomic status. So you're able to see the impact of poverty heavily affecting the child's access to education and continual progress to education, and also the parent's ability to focus on the child. Another current issue at a structural level is stigmatization for both the parents and kids, stigma for both the students at Siri and their parents based on their socio-economic status, mental health status, and enrollment in a flexible schooling environment can reinforce the fact that they are among the most vulnerable group. Create Foundation describes the effects of stigma leaving both groups feeling excluded and treated differently from their peers. Particularly in a setting of flexible schooling, you can see that in comparison to what might be classified as a regular school, not necessarily by the teachers but by just society as a whole. Regular school can exclude and treat people at a flexible school like Siri differently, and that can lead to greater stigma overall for both the students and parents. Another current issue at a structural level facing this group includes a lack of effective services, especially for parents. People with multiple complex or interrelated needs have often been identified as hard to reach by services and researchers. According to the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing, there is a need to keep families with multiple concerns involved in services over time and to provide flexible services. Low socioeconomic families are often likely to use economic or crisis support services, but not services that provide preventative measures or educational services to parents. Without these services, there is no ability for prevention or future planning of circumstances that are disadvantageous for clients. You see that people with a higher socioeconomic status tend to access educational and preventative based services, whereas for the parents, carers, and even students at CERI, there tends to be an access of services in crisis and immediate need, and not that focus on long-term sustainable options, hence the lack of effective services being targeted towards them. Some of the current issues at an individual level facing this group include social isolation. That is an individual level issue faced by the students at CERI. So social isolation was particularly frequent in disadvantaged socioeconomic groups. Raw and Whitman found that individuals with low socioeconomic status are more than 3 times likely to be socially isolated. A lack of social connection, particularly outside of a flexible school setting due to the impact of no friends, their mental health status impacting on how their ability to make friends. Maybe there's trauma scenarios where they're unable to make friends. This has an effect on their physical and brain health across the lifespan, particularly in those pivotal teenage growth years. Social isolation at CERI is found quite common outside of school. Another current issue at an individual level facing this group include mental health concerns. Within a flexible school setting such as CERI, there are a number of mental health concerns that arise for the client. Reese and Lampert's study discovered that children and adolescents with a low socioeconomic status suffer from multiple stressful life situations and are 3 times more likely to develop mental health problems than their peers with a higher socioeconomic status. Children from families with low socioeconomic statuses are at higher risk of suffering from different stressful life situations. Furthermore, a stressful life situation is associated with mental health problems in children and adolescents. At CERI, students are enrolled in flexible schooling as a last resort, and typically on the basis that regular schooling was unable to accommodate them due to stressful life circumstances, traumatic events, and mental health concerns, particularly for the individual. Each individual student at CERI faces mental health concerns with little access to resources until they attend CERI. The impact of a low socioeconomic status background can impact on these children and their mental health ongoing if there's no intervention done. When responding to this issue, CERI School is responsible for providing support and intervention at both levels. CERI School's Code of Conduct require the school to act within the best interest of the student, maintain a child-safe environment, promote safety, well-being, and development for students. The school's well-being team plays one of the bigger roles as they directly communicate with both students and their parents around the student's progress and mental health or trauma concerns, and in turn are able to implement changes within the school setting and make recommendations for effective services outside of school, which can have a domino effect on stigma, social isolation, and even improvement for quality of life. Social work in this role would focus on understanding the student within their social, mental, and emotional context and maximising the support available to them to promote the best educational and schooling outcomes. Social workers address at both an individual and structural level by supporting students and their families or carers to deal with the psychosocial impacts and stress, as well as environmental factors associated with educational experience, significant life events, and changes to well-being. Both social workers in this setting and the school as a whole have a part to play in addressing these issues at both a structural and individual level. It is seen that the school and social work, in turn, by impacting on the individual and treating the individual, can as a whole improve the structural side of things. The role of social work in conjunction with these issues is necessary. Within a social work role, they are able to give visibility to the structural effects on their client, the effects such as impact of poverty, stigma, or lack of effective services, to respond and address them. Essentially, what social work does is give visibility to what is classified as invisible. Advocating is a key principle of social work as well. The ASAW Code of Ethics highlights the need for advocating change on behalf of the students and parents at CIRI against these structural and individual issues. It is necessary to eradicate barriers which can limit or disrupt their general well-being and standard of living. Finally, social workers work from a number of theories as methods of planning and intervention. In this scenario, working from a psychodynamic theory encourages social workers to assess the client's behaviour, how their behaviour is affected unconsciously by the environment around them. Students are vulnerable, and the environment around them can influence on their circumstances. Social workers can look at the cause of these issues from both a structural and individual level to address it and intervene with it. The role of social work and social workers in my placement at CIRI is necessary to address these current issues at an individual and structural level, and I hope that this presentation gave greater detail into why and what these issues are. Thank you.